everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Planning Committee meeting today. First item is apologies, please.
Yes, Chair. We have apologies from Councillors Matt Smith and Allen. We appear to have Councillor Rainsford here substituting on behalf of Councillor Smith.
Excellent. And I think Lindsay will be running a little bit late. Councillor McCarthy has a family emergency, which means he might not be with us. So if we can record that, I'd be grateful. Are there any declarations of interest at this stage anyone needs to make for the meeting? No. As ever, if anything crops up during the meeting, catch my eye and we'll get that all recorded. We're happy to note item 3. I hope, and can I say a big congratulations to Angela as our new Vice Chair. I'm sure you'll do a fantastic job. Anything on the minutes that have been circulated from those who are here on the 13th of May? No, if not, I will sign those as a true record. And if you could pick those up, I'd be grateful. Thank you very much. Chair's urgent business, as well as welcoming Angela to her new seat, I'd like to say a big welcome to Kevin and to Carol on your first meeting today. And is it welcome back, Maddie? Old friend of the committee, but I can just hold the excitement at bay for the minute. But no, it's good to see you all. Item 6, we don't have any questions from the public, I don't think. Okay, that takes then on to the planning applications. 7.1 is the first at page 5. We're at St Anne's House, and Amy, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. I just want to make you all aware of an addendum report that also highlights that some additional public comments have been received since publishing the officer report, and also some changes to the recommended conditions. This application has been referred to Planning Committee by Councillor Cathy Watkins. The application site is St Anne's House, a Grade 2 listed detached building set within large grounds within Plymouth. The closest residential properties are located at Stamford Close. The proposal seeks to change the use of St Anne's House to a mixed-use wedding venue, holiday let, hotel, restaurant, cafe with associated development, including car parking. The site currently has consent to be used as a wedding venue and holiday accommodation, which was granted at Planning Committee in 2020. There were a number of restrictive conditions that the applicant is also seeking to address through this application. The proposal is therefore seeking to add the cafe restaurant use, which will be accommodated within the main house and proposes to serve food around the existing pool area and part of the lawn. The proposal also includes parking provision. This image shows the access road leading up to St Anne's House from Jennycliff Lane. The proposed parking will be located to the right of the access road. This image here shows St Anne's House itself, and this shows the paved area directly outside of St Anne's House. This image here shows the gate that's just at the forefront, which will be used to gain access to the proposed parking spaces. This proposed parking will be along the eastern boundary, with the residential properties of Stamford Close located behind on the other side. The proposed spaces will not be permanently marked out on the ground, but will be formed using a grass grid system. This is the proposed plan, which shows the proposal seeks to provide a total of 34 car parking spaces, 15 of which will be located in the grassed area at the bottom of your screen, just east of the access. 13 will be located to the rear of St Anne's House, with 6 on the access road located near to St Anne's House. Concerns have been raised within the public comments about noise and disturbance. The application, though, was supported by a noise impact assessment, which states that the proposal would include up to 28 bookings a year, with planned events would have a capacity of 100 people and run up to no later than 11 p.m. The submitted noise impact assessment concluded that the cumulative impact from the noise from people and vehicles would not cause more than a low impact at the nearest noise-sensitive receptors with additional mitigation measures. The Environmental Health Officer has considered the submitted details and raised no objection to the proposal. Conditions have been recommended that requires the development to accord with the submitted noise impact assessment and requires a noise management plan to be submitted and agreed. Conditions also restrict the number of people being able to attend an event to no more than 100 people and restricts the number of events to 28 a year. The Local Highway Authority also considered the submitted information and considered the level of parking provided to be sufficient for guests and staff. The applicant is committed to implementing their travel plan initiatives and parking attendance for events to ensure guests are parking in the correct locations. A condition has therefore been recommended and agreed by the applicant to update the site management plan to include these requirements. Concerns have been raised by the Historic Environment Officer regarding the impact of the proposed parking to the front of St Anne's House, as it would impact on the setting and significance of the listed building and consider it to be unacceptable. While these comments from the Historic Environment have been carefully considered, I have also considered the comments from the Planning Inspectorate for a previously refused scheme on the site which sought a very similar development that was being considered today. This plan shows the previously refused scheme which also sought to change the use of St Anne's House from a wedding venue and holiday accommodation to a mixed-use event which also include the cafe and restaurant use. The proposal, however, sought to have 45 car parking spaces in total, with 29 of those spaces being proposed on the open lawn and would cover the entire length of the driveway. The local planning authority refused the planning application as the proposed car parking area to the east of the drive was considered to erode the unspoiled open qualities and spacious setting of St Anne's House by virtue of the setting, size, and likely cluttered visual impact from the parked cars. The car parking area was considered to intrude onto the setting of the listed building and detract from its appreciation and understanding of its special architectural qualities. The proposal was therefore considered unacceptable and not compliant with policy. The decision was appealed and considered by the Planning Inspectorate. The planning inspector dismissed the appeal as they agreed with the planning authority's reason for refusal. They stated that the presence of parked cars in the area, particularly along the edge of the driveway, would be intrusive in the key views of the primary elevations of the listed building from Jennycliffe Lane and when approaching it down the access, resulting in harm to the setting. The inspector did, however, state that in the decision that cars could already be parked on any part of the site in association with the current authorised use. And at the time of their site visit, they saw 8 to 9 vintage vehicles parked along the northeastern boundary in the approximate position of the proposed spaces, numbers 35 to 45. These were not overly intrusive in public views, and when approaching the house along the drive, those parked along the edge of the driveway would intrude into key views of the listed building, resulting in harm to its setting. The proposed parking along the eastern boundary is in a similar location as the 8 or 9 vintage vehicles the inspector saw at the time of their site visit and concluded that they weren't overly intrusive in public views or when approaching the house along the drive. It is therefore considered that the parking along the eastern boundary as proposed under this proposal is unlikely to have be intrusive on the setting of the listed building. It is considered that there would be a degree of harm, but that could be considered as less than substantial. The NPPF advises that this harm should be weighed against the public benefits of the proposal. In this regard, income generated from the development could assist in helping to maintain the fabric of the listed building. The car parking area would benefit the applicant's business and job creation, which is to support the local economy. Established planning policies recognise the importance of supporting the strengthening the economy. When considering the level of harm, it is considered at the lower end of harm, and when balancing it up against the public benefits of it, it's considered the benefits outweigh the harm of the setting of the listed building. It is considered that the proposal is finely balanced, but the planning decision in this case is tipped, in my view, in favour of conditional approval. A number of conditions have been recommended, which can be seen within the Master's report, but the applicant has not agreed to a couple of them. One of the conditions requires the details of EV charging points to be submitted and agreed to the local planning authority. We had originally asked for 9 EV charging spaces, but the applicant wishes to provide 2. You will note in my addendum report that through discussions with the local highway authority, we have considered the number and reduced it down to 6 EV charging spaces. The applicant has also asked that the condition that restricts the amplified music being played outside of St Anne's House be removed. However, I consider this condition reasonable as the submitted management plan refers to the use of amplified music not being permitted outside of the main house, and the submitted noise impact assessment was based on the site being used without amplified music outside. I have Scott Smythe here from the local highway authority, Alex Copsey from our historic environment officer, and also Will Tompkins, our environmental health officer here, if you have any questions for them. Thank you.
Amy, thank you very much indeed. We have two nominated speakers on this item. The first is Councillor Rebecca Smith, who doesn't seem to be here, so we'll pass on her. And the second is Mr. Bamping. If you'd like to make your way down, you're welcome, sir. 5 minutes will be yours. Would you like to be told when 4 have gone?
No, you can just tell me to shut up after 5.
I wouldn't dream of doing that, but if you're not, take a seat and in your own time.
Good afternoon. I'm here today on behalf of the applicant in regards to this planning application. However, I hope I can use this brief time to focus on a few of the conditions which are still not completely agreed upon and explain to you why we believe a couple of the conditions are completely unreasonable. Firstly, the applicant wants to make everybody aware that since buying the property in a derelict state almost a decade ago, he has banned fireworks from St Anne's House completely. The main reason for this application for the cafe and restaurant is to keep our staff employed during quiet times when we have no guests booked in, so the public and the local community are able to benefit and use the heated swimming pool that this has already been tried and tested in 2020 and 2022. We have so far had over 250 five-star reviews from holiday makers all around the world as St Anne's House is promoting Plymouth as an ocean city holiday destination. Indeed, St Anne's House is proudly one of the first venues near or within Plymouth to be able to facilitate an outdoor wedding. This application will allow 30 guests to stay and up to 100 guests to attend. And as you can imagine, it would be rather strange not to hear "Here Comes the Bride" music to be played as the marriage ceremony begins. For the record, St Anne's House has had no formal noise complaints made in the last 4 years since it is operated commercially as a hotel holiday wedding venue. The condition not to allow amplified outdoor music is therefore, we believe, unreasonable, especially when you consider that this issue is not prohibited by the wedding licence, nor has been raised in the noise assessment or by environmental protection. The committee should bear in mind that St Anne's House would only be able to do weddings on 28 days of the year. In the applicant's previous successful appeal in regards to the pool building, the planning inspector alluded specifically to this point and stated at point 29 in his report, which is available for you all to read, 29. The council has also suggested that conditions should be imposed related to noise, hours of use and management of the pool to protect the residential amenity of the area. However, the nearest dwellings are some considerable distance away from the proposed buildings, and St Anne's House would act as a substantial barrier in between. I have not been presented with any evidence to indicate that noise from the pool building would be likely to result in any harm to the occupants of these dwellings. I am therefore not persuaded that these conditions will meet the test of necessity and reasonableness set out in the PPG. Whilst this was a separate application focused purely on the pool building with slightly different considerations, the applicant points out that the only source for amplified outdoor music would be coming from the existing bar and restaurant with nowhere else, as this location is where the cafe and restaurant will be within the new pool building. We hope that the council and the councillors will be reasonable and allow this condition to be removed, relaxed or altered. The final condition I would like to address is the condition to have a Grade 2 listed building to have 6 freestanding EV charging points installed. This condition was 9 until a few days ago. The applicant is agreeable to 2. The infrastructure and costs involved in having 6 would be substantial. The cost will be well over £40,000 and could take several months. We believe that the condition to insist on having 6 charging points is unnecessary, uneconomical, unfair, unconscionable and completely unreasonable. The council should also realise that Historic England is considering allowing Grade 2 listed buildings to be exempt from having any EV chargers within the curtilage of the property. This is also outlined in the Town and Country Planning General Permitting Development Order 2015. We hope that this condition can be reconsidered today to a logical number that does not put a significant financial burden upon the applicant. Finally, as members will know, this application has been called to a committee following the request of a divisional member with specific regards to 5 objections submitted from 3 different people. The following objections have been raised, and we would like members to know our responses. Noise disturbance. As per paragraph 56 of the committee report, the proposal are not considered to have a detrimental impact on neighbours' amenity. Antisocial behaviour. We are aware that this comment concerns, however, there haven't been any complaints raised with environmental protection whilst the site has been used commercially. Use of Jennycliff car park, not suitable. It is interesting to note that 2 of the objections mentioned the under-supervised Jennycliff car park for the antisocial behaviour. This submission deals with that point, where we provide sufficient on-site parking for both guests and staff, although obviously St Anne's House cannot control if people visiting the venue in any capacity decide to park in the nearby public Jennycliff car park, just like the 5 people who turned up in 5 separate cars for yesterday's viewing. Cars using narrow one-way the wrong way. This point is noted, however, this aspect does not concern the application. Increase in traffic and parking, dangerous pedestrians. This aspect of the proposal is acceptable by the highways officer and is not a ground for dismissing. Location is a night quiet.
That's your time, Mr. Bamping. I'm not going to use your language at this stage, but thank you very much indeed. If you'd like to make your way back. And it's now open to the committee. Who wants to go first? Kathy.
Thank you, Chair. As a commercial development, I think it's good, but I have got numerous concerns about it. First, and it's quite difficult actually to tease out what exactly the inspector approves, what he doesn't. So, if you forgive me, I'll just go through 1 or 2 things. First of all, I think there's planning consent for 30 people to attend. Is there anywhere that the inspector has allowed 100 to attend?
So the inspector wouldn't have considered it as 100. The previous application was based on 30. And I think actually it wasn't the inspector, I think it was the planning committee that allowed it at 30. So I don't believe it was the committee member, the inspector that considered it at any more than 30.
Okay. And that was 30 inside the premises, not outside. Is that correct?
I'll have to double check. I've got the permission just here from the previous one. But what I remember rightly, it was just restricted to 30 attendees.
So now we're being asked to approve basically a party of up to 100 people every 13 days and possibly more in the summer, whether it's inside or outside. Is that correct?
So just to go back on your point, so the consent that they've got currently allows to have no more than 30 people, 6 staff shall attend any function held on site. So there's no restrictions on whether that's inside or outside the building.
Okay, thank you. I've got some further points, but I'll let others come in first.
I'm not seeing a great slew of hands, so did you want to carry on at the moment, Kathy?
Thank you,
But
Chair.
could you bring your mic a bit closer to you? That's superb, thanks.
Referring to the noise element, I live in Hoo, and we have a very strange acoustics out there. If any party goes on, we all seem to be able to hear it. So that is quite concerning. Any music coming from would be heard from the development. If there was, say, they might have a brass band, which is not amplified music at all, but it is music, and it certainly would be heard for some distance. I also wonder whether it's been established they can have 34 car parking places are sufficient for 100 attendees. That means 3 people coming per car, which, is unlikely. The nearest bus stop is half a mile away. Buses are every hour at night. Taxis are pretty well unavailable. There are issues there that how are people actually going to arrive and park? I mean, I know they've got Jennycliff car park nearby, but apart from that, they're not going to be parking on site, or they're not going to have transport. Also, when it comes to the management, with the best one in the world, I think that the there's commercially, the applicant is not going to be very keen on turfing people out. If they're making a noise, they're enjoying themselves, they're laughing. Maybe cars, doors are banging, but any sort of banging or, you know, unexpected laughing or whatever happens when you have a party is going to be intrusive on the people in the area. So I just think those points need to be considered. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Alison.
Thank you, Chair. My concerns are very similar to Councillor Watkin. You've got potentially 100 guests. You've actually got 29 car parking spaces because 7 are allocated to staff, I think. That's almost 4 people per car. And the Jennycliffe car park does get very full, particularly in summer when a lot of people will want weddings. So I think there's an issue around that capacity. But I have a question about what actually happens in the garden. Is there a permanent marquee going up? And will that not impact on the building? Or did the applicant have another suggestion for how the weddings would go?
So as part of the application that we're considering today, there's no physical changes to the building at all. The only thing that's being considered in terms of like development would be the car parking spaces. The applicant has got consent for a permanent structure to be put over the swimming pool, which is where the events effectively can be held.
And a further question is, it's about the music being played. And I heard what the applicant said about wanting to play music outside and that there'd been no complaints. Well, one would hope there hadn't been any complaints because the music up to this point should have been indoors. So I'm not quite sure how the applicant can talk about noise nuisance when it's not been allowed so far to be played outside. And therefore residents have an opportunity to experience it.
Okay, Maddie.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to clarify one point. Councillor Watkins actually called this application into planning committee.
I think that's...
So we recently had our training, so I was just concerned about preconception, and I didn't know what grounds Councillor Watkins actually
You might be worried about predetermination. I don't know if preconceptions are within our
That's
gift.
one point I just wanted to make. And I mean, I must admire the applicant's tenacity with this application. It's been to and fro several times, and I think I've seen this, I think it's the 3rd time for me. I remember we previously did a site visit. I just wondered, my question was actually, I have no problem with the application at all in its entirety. I want to congratulate Amy, you've worked incredibly hard on this and actually working with the applicant as well, so well done and thank you. Just one little tiny thing, it's something that Councillor Aspinall quite often raises at Planning Committee. Are there any disabled bays for disabled people that want to go to a party? Thank you.
We haven't allocated any for dedicated for disabled parking as part of the scheme, but Scott, I don't know if you wanted to.
We have, as Amy mentioned in the report, there is a management company, a management regime when weddings are taking place. So I don't see it as being an issue that potentially, if they are knowing that they're expecting disabled guests arriving for a venue, you can see there are a number of car parking spaces immediately outside the front of the building. So I don't see, as part of the management company, potentially we could get that included to ensure that, the spaces at the front of the property are made available if they're expecting disabled guests, and that could be included within the management plan.
Thank you. It's just obviously everyone's assuming this could be for parties and weddings, but if you've got the WI going along, my mother's a member of the WI, if they want to book the hall, she's disabled, needs a disabled bay, so I just wanted to raise that. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Maddie. Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering who, if anybody, would be monitoring how many people are attending and what the noise levels are.
How would we look to monitor and enforce if needed?
Yeah, so it would be down to the applicant to enforce. They've got a management plan as part of that. But if we ever got made notified of any issues, our enforcement team would be the ones that will look into it and investigate.
So you're saying we're not monitoring it, it's up to residents to put in complaints.
I think that would be like any planning application. If someone wants to build a 5-storey building, it's not down to planning officers to go away and just keep tabs on it. So that's not unusual. If any reports are made of breaches, they can certainly be investigated. But I don't want people to get the idea this is something out of the ordinary. We were what's proposed at the moment to be approved. They would have to stick to that, but it's not part of a. Much as I'm sure we'd all like to go to weddings and have a nice time over there, it's not the council's job to go and monitor and count people in, count people out. Zoe, I do apologise. Okay, sure. Any more? Amy, we've heard about the pool area where events would take place. Is that conditioned in terms of that's where, within the red line, ceremonies and events like that would take place, or are we not specifying that?
No, the red line goes around the whole site. So, yeah, we haven't conditioned it that it only stays within the pool area.
Thanks. Any more? We've spoken a lot and heard a lot, in fairness, about the conditions. Does anybody want to raise anything there, Kathy?
Could just clarify, please, whether, if it's in the pool area, that's not specified as a condition as such?
It's not specified in the
condition. So in fact,
no.
they could come outside that area and.
Yeah, but it's similar under the current consent. So obviously it's got consent at the moment as a wedding and hotel accommodation, and that's around the whole site. So users are able to use the whole site. So yeah, we haven't restricted that any events can only be held around the pool area.
I mean, having been on the site visit and the previous site visit, I think, Maddie, were you on that? It was indeed a long time ago. I think if we are looking to give consent for events, we do have to remember this is quite a large area, and I think the idea that we would say you have to be indoors or you have to be in the enclosed pool area, and you are only allowed out to walk to your car when you're ready to go home might be seen as a bit daft. I mean, when I go to these sort of events, you know, no one says you have to stay in. It's almost like a jail. That's the nature of these events and locations, I think. Is there anything on the conditions anybody wants to look to change? I am ready to draw it to a conclusion, but it's the conditions that seem to have drawn people's interest. Kathy, yeah.
Well, I say my concern is the number, and I appreciate that, you know, in 2020 there were only 30, but that was during COVID. So, you know, there is room for an increase in numbers, an argument for that. But I do think that 100 is rather too many.
Are you looking to make an amendment or suggest something?
So 50 as a compromise?
Where would we start? Obviously, we've got the conditions as drafted already and recommended. Where would we stand with looking to reduce that?
Thank you, Chair. I don't think the number is specified in the description of the development, is it? But it has been the basis on which the application has been assessed. So it isn't something that we would be looking to change here. It's either acceptable as 100 or it's not.
So where is that laid down at the moment? If we were to approve the application as put forward with no amendments, where would we be able to point? And to take Paul's point, there was something which clearly had way over 100 people turn up. What would we point to say you can only have 100?
I believe that's condition 11, Chair.
Okay, so that's what Kathy is looking at, and you've suggested, 50, did you say? Okay, if you'll forgive me, that did sound a sort of pluck out of the air, so I think we do need to consider properly, because there are the impact on local people and the impact on a commercial business. So I think we have to look at this in the round. So would that be seconded by anybody? No, so that's falling, I'm afraid. Are there anything else? Is there anything else on the conditions before we move to a conclusion? No, I'm trying to give people as much chance, but if not, that's fine. I'd like to echo Maddie's point in terms of thanking Amy for the work on this, because this isn't a new site to the local planning authority, but there's an awful lot of work gone into this. And as I was hinting a couple of seconds ago, we always have to balance the needs of business with the needs of local people, and that's contained in there is the joy of being on the planning committee. I think what Amy's come up with is a healthy balance. It was useful to go on the site visit yesterday. I think there were the three of us, Angela, myself, and Kathy, and we did walk along the eastern side, the gap between the property and the nearest, I think that's 3 properties there. And although it's not a sizable gap, I think it's enough with the protections built into the conditions to make sure that local people aren't overly disturbed, or disturbed at all for that matter, by the events which are limited. So the recommendation, as you can see on page 5, is to grant conditionally, and that's where I am at the moment. So if we could move to the vote, please. Before we begin, are our new colleagues all okay with voting? You know what you're doing? Okay, great stuff. If we could open that, that'd be great. Okay, I will declare that carried. Thank you very much indeed, everybody. Thank you, Amy. And we'll now move on in due course to item 7.2, page 25 of your papers, and we're at 28 Mount Gould Road. And Joe, in your own time, please.
Thank you, Chair. The application before the committee is for 28 Mount Gould Road. This case was brought to the committee by Councillor Aspinall. The application before the committee is for a change of use for 28 Mount Gould Road. 28 Mount Gould Road is an end of terrace house on the corner of Mount Gould Road and Channel View Terrace. So just show the site here. So this is the Mount Gould elevation. And again, here you can see the corner of Channel View Terrace with Mount Gould Road, and the house in question has the scaffolding. And this is the rear part of 28 Mount Gould Road, where it intersects with a service lane to the rear and Lipson Avenue. At the rear of the property, there is an off-road parking area which is currently configured for 2 vehicles behind those gates, plus a garden, and there's also a secure bicycle store. So originally a dwelling house, the property was given permission for change of use into a residential care home in 1984, and subsequently there were further applications for extensions and the off-road parking area. In 2003, a change of use was granted to enable the building to be used as a sui generis 7-bedroom house of multiple occupation with a student-only restriction. The proposal before us is for a change of use from a sui generis 7-bedroom property to a sui generis open market HMO with increased occupancy. As the HMO status is already granted, the key consideration is the impact of change of use from student to open market, and the additional bedroom, 8, are illustrated on the proposed plans. So here we can see a picture of the current parking area. This was taken from the applicant's parking strategy. And here are the existing plans for 28 Mount Gould Road. I've turned it around to fit it onto the screen, but this is the proposed ground floor plan, so you can see the parking area is to the left, and with the very recent changes to, there has been an addendum for this report, as they've now changed the parking area to create 3 off-road parking spaces with a turning area. Previously it was just 2 off-road spaces with no turning area. The first floor proposed plan and the second floor proposed plan, which also features a large roof terrace. This is the parking and turning track diagram for the 3 vehicles which Highways have reviewed. Highways did originally object to the application, but since the change to 3 spaces with a turning area, they have withdrawn their objections subject to conditions, and those revised conditions are in the addendum. There are no physical changes to the proposed building other than the change to the parking area, and the recommendation is to approve, subject to condition, the officer's report and the addendum. Thank you.
Joe, thank you very much indeed. We have one speaker on this item. We did have one speaker on this item, Councillor Chris Cudahy. First time at the Planning Committee. You're very welcome to join us. Chris, 5 minutes is yours. Would you like to be told when 4 have gone?
No, I'm sure I can finish well within time, okay. Chair. Thanks very much.
Over to you.
There were 2 particular points of objection from a resident of the ward. One was parking, but the residents informed me that they're very pleased with what the owner has proposed, recognising that there's a limit on what they can do within the available space, so that's no longer an issue. The one that remains an issue is the question of management. Looking at the officer's report, let me just see if I can find that. I'm looking at paragraph. This is the original report. Condition 4, management and maintenance plan. It refers to welcome packs about house rules for those who move in. Details about limiting disturbances to neighbouring properties, contact details in the event of issues arising, being accessible to tenants, etc., etc. But the concern is really that it's now going to be a very large HMO of 8 or more people. What if residents have an issue with behaviours ongoing within the premises? Can the condition be amended to include a notice that the owner is required to put a notice on the exterior of the property so that neighbours in the event that there is an issue know exactly who they can contact. I think the concern about the proposal where it says neighbouring properties in the vicinity of 28 Mount Gould Road should be informed of a point of contact in the event of any issues. Well, what actually does that mean? Does that mean just distributing a leaflet through half a dozen neighbouring doors and on one occasion just after the property's opened and then never doing it again? That seems to me that it's probably going to fulfil that condition. So understandably, the resident who's asked me to speak on this has asked for something slightly stronger, and I hope that the committee will agree. Thank you.
Chris, thank you very much indeed. And it's now, if you'd like to make your way back, it's now open to the committee. Who wants to kick off? Go on, Madam. I'm not exactly overburdened with hands here, so...
You've got a lot of new people here, Councillor Stevens. I just wanted to ask one little question. I mean, I completely agree with what, I know it's Chris, but I can't remember, Councillor Chris. You're suggesting, I think that's a really good idea. If that could be actually incorporated into a condition, I'm happy to propose that, if that's what you need, if someone here is actually able to second that. Thank you. I've got a seconder, fantastic. So if that could be looked at, please. I just wondered, what are the actual size of this, going to Scott again, what's the actual size of the parking spaces, please? Because you said it's been changed slightly. I'm just thinking, if you've got people that turn up in 3 Range Rovers or something, or SUVs, are 3 SUVs going to park in those 3 spaces? Or if you've got 3 Mini Metros or Fiat Pandas or something, I'm old, as you can probably tell, they would easily...
We are being webcast, so other makes of vehicle are available.
Are available. So. But it's just, I'm worried about, you know, if big vehicles are parked there, are they going to be knocking each other's doors and causing arguments or whatever? It's not about that. It's about the fact, are they adequately sized parking bays, please? Thank you, Chair.
I refer the application to my colleagues in Highways, so I'd like to ask Scott to answer this one. Thank you.
Yeah, coming back to Councillor Bridgman's point, the spaces are 2.4 by 4.8, so they are the required size. If 3 Range Rovers turned up, unlikely you'd probably be able to get all 3 there, because generally parking spaces have stayed pretty much the same over the years, and cars, as you say, have got larger. So, but it is a national standard. It's applied throughout the country. Whether that needs to change, I'm sure it will do at some point in the future with cars getting larger, but like I say, the standards that we have to work to are 2.4 by 4.8, and the 3 spaces are in accordance with that standard.
Thank you very much, Chair. No further questions. Thank you.
When we come to any application in your neighbourhood, we'll know to make the spaces a lot bigger with the sort of cars that you seem to be...
Chair, my car's tiny.
Seem to be used to. Well, we'll see where we are at the time. In terms of the issue of the management plan, I would suggest, rather than delve down in, although it's a very valid point that you make and that Alison has supported, could I suggest that rather than delve down into that sort of detail ourselves, if we're minded to approve the application, that we say that the management and maintenance plan could only be agreed with the consultation of the local ward councillors, and then when they want to raise the issues of signage and notice to neighbours, that's something that they'll be totally free to put in. It just makes our job a little bit easier if our Sutton Mount Ward colleagues will forgive me, rather than us delve down and try and solve the problems ourselves. They know their area a lot better than we do. Anything else from anybody? Jeremy.
Is there precedence in planning for such a proposal that the management plan would have to be delivered in consultation with local councillors? Or are we setting precedence here?
That's happened many, many occasions, and not just management plans, other conditions. I'm thinking of materials for new builds, etc., parking plans. To say regularly might be an exaggeration, but it is by no means uncommon for and it would formally be delegated to, I think, to the service director, who would sign it off or not sign it off. So we're not giving I don't think our constitution allows for the ward councillors themselves to have the power, for want of a better phrase. We have to delegate to officers, but if we were to specify that the service director, would do that in consultation with 3 ward councillors, would pretty standard be fair, Julie, or that's not over-egging the pudding?
No, Chair. I think you're correct. It is something that we have done in the past. So, yeah, it is a standard in these circumstances.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you very much for clarity.
That's quite all right. Anything else? Carol?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask that it's an increase in tenants from 7 to 8, isn't it? Has there been any complaints from the neighbourhood or residents about people that live in the house? It's too busy, there's extra rubbish, anything along them lines? Thank you.
So one of the objections I received was concerned about the standard of accommodation, so I did check the room measurements were in line with nationally prescribed space standards. We've also found out that the applicant has applied for an HMO licence with the licensing team in Plymouth City Council, and it has been granted as suitable for 8 bedrooms and the maximum occupancy of 8 persons. With regards to rubbish bins, etc., one of the conditions I've requested and got agreed with the applicant is for a waste management strategy, so that will be reviewed to make sure it's suitable for the number of people living there before they can live there. Thank you.
Thanks. Any more for any more? No? Okay, so I didn't sense any opposition to the suggestion that we've sort of tweaked from Maddie and Alison in terms of the ward councillors being consulted on the management plan, which I think makes perfect sense. The recommendation is to grant conditionally, and I think this is hopefully going to be a fairly straightforward one. So Joe, again, thank you for your work on this one. Are we ready to move to the vote? If we could open it up, please. Thank you. I will declare that one carried. Thank you very much indeed, Joe. Thanks for your work on that one. Item number 8 are the applications that have been decided to be found at page 37 in the last couple of months. Any questions on those? For our new colleagues, this is just, as it suggests, a list of decisions that the authority have taken. Some of them will be the small minority that come to the planning committee. The others are the ones taken by our officers under delegated authority. If there's no questions there, we'll note those. And item number 9 at page 65 are the appeal decisions in the same period. So this is when the planning authority have refused planning permission and the applicant has gone to the inspector to appeal it, and we see the decisions and part of the rationale for each one here. Anything on those? No, we will note those in that case. I don't think we've got any exempt business, so that brings us to the conclusion. Thank you very much, everybody, and we will see you all next time. Bye for now.